Hey everybody, it's John DePietro, and I want to thank you so much for taking time from your busy day to be with us to listen to this exciting edition of My Life with Kenny Rogers. But folks, let me put all your fears to rest. We're not going to talk about my life with Kenny Rogers, but the life of our guest with Kenny Rogers. And our guest today, Steve Glassmeyer, spent over 40 years in the Kenny Rogers Band, and we're going to be talking to him in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you this. This is one of a series of several commemorative videos that we're putting together to talk with people who have spent considerable time backstage with Kenny Rogers. And if you enjoy it, what you want to do is this. Down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little red button that says subscribe. Hit that button, and then a bell pops up. Hit the bell, and then every time a new one of these comes out, and folks, we've got several already in the hopper and several more that are in the planning stages, you're going to be the first to receive them. Now, I will tell you this. This special internet offer is not available in stores. And don't try to find it at Walmart or Kmart or anywhere. But it's available to you as a Kenny Rogers loyal fan, and it's available at no cost whatsoever. So, with that being said, let us go directly to our special guest, Mr. Steve Glassmeyer. Steve, welcome to a show about you.
Thanks, John. It's good to be here.
So, Steve, your career with Kenny probably stretches as far back as just about anybody. So, talk about what you were doing when you came across Kenny as a as a musician, and how did it all get put together with you and the initial band?
Well, I was playing in a trio with a couple of guys, Gene Golden and Bobby Daniels. I think you may have already interviewed Bobby. I'm not sure about Gene yet. And we had a friend who was a guitar player who I'd worked with in the past. And we got this notification from a club owner that we had worked for a lot in Nashville. And at the time he was perhaps potentially going to be Kenny Rogers' manager. And he called us and said, Kenny's going to be looking for a band. The first edition broke up, and I want to take him to hear you guys, no guarantees. And would you be interested in that? And we said, well, sure, we're happy to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what happened. Is it turned out that person did not become Kenny's manager, but Kenny needed a band anyway, and he was going to move to Nashville. He decided not to move to Nashville since the management deal fell through. He's going to go back with his old guy, Ken Cragen, again. And so he just said, I'm just going to let a travel agent deal with it. I want you guys to be my band. So we latched on to a little TG, our guitar player, and the four of us, off we went.
Just like that. All these, you know what it seems, Steve, is when we're doing these interviews, and I don't know, maybe we've done 15 or so, there's all these thin threads that put everybody together. These tiny little coincidences that if you weren't at this place at this time, you wouldn't have bumped into these people. And, people think that this was a highly organized effort from the beginning where they auditioned 7 or 8 guys or 10 or 12 people to narrow it down to 7 or 8 guys, which ultimately became a girl, a lady, several years later. But it was all, somebody was talking to somebody and somebody was doing this. And, as the Bucky Harris? Mm-hmm. Bucky Harris, is it Harris or Phillips?
Harris.
Bucky Harris's story, where he just happened to be in the right place at the right time at midnight in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
It's all about
networking and being at the right place at the right time, luck, all that stuff. Has everything to do with it.
So you're doing what, 3 sets a night at a Holiday Inn lounge?
We're doing 4 sets a night.
4 sets, starting at what, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock?
9 to 1.
9 to 1, so 45 minutes on, 15-minute break.
40 minutes on, 20 off, or 45, 15. Got a friend one time that wrote a song called 40 on, 20 off blues.
Okay. And that, Steve, was the days probably when you could smoke in those lounges.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, cigarettes. Yeah. So by midnight, you guys could probably not even see across the stage to each other with all the smoke that would be in those rooms.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. We were we were a little on the lazy side. We were a lot of musicians would come and sit in with our group. So it was kind of a challenge to see in that 4 hours, maybe you'd only work 2 hours and a half because you'd get somebody to come in and sit in for you and
Oh, that's pretty good.
hang out at the bar. So
That's pretty good. Hang out at the bar. That was the thing to do at the time. So as far as once you got rolling with Kenny, what were the many roles that you played? And we could do a whole session just on the roles that you did off stage, but tell us some of those.
well, all three of the people in our little trio that I just referred to were singers. So we were all background singers. I played keyboard. There was 2 keyboards and a drummer. That was we didn't have a guitar player or a bass player.
Mm-hmm.
So Gene, the other keyboard player, played a Fender Rhodes bass with his left hand for a while till we hired Chuck, the bass player. That was my role. I played piano. I was essentially the acoustic piano player, and Gene was essentially played electric piano and organ, and of course bass. And Bobby played drums, and TG played guitar. So
now you talk about TG and talk about when I referred to Bucky before. TG was working with you guys out in Tahoe.
mm-hmm.
Decided to go skiing.
That's right.
Right. And what happened?
Do not go skiing, because if you get hurt and you can't play, you're out. You're fired.
You're out.
And of course, we were bulletproof at the time. We all went skiing, and of course, TG fell and broke his shoulder. So
that's not good if you're a guitar player.
No, that's not good if you're a guitar player. So, but he wound up coming back after Bucky played with us. I'm not sure. Did you ask Bucky how long?
Yeah, I think it was a couple months.
Yeah.
Something like that. I know Bucky didn't want to go on the road.
Right.
And Kenny was going into the studio.
Yeah, so TG healed up after a while and came back for another year or so. And then he decided he wanted to go back to college and get his doctorate degree, and he was into classical guitar. That's what he was.
Classical
and
guitar.
Still is. He's a teacher now. He's a college professor.
Wow, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So we're jumping all over the place time-wise here. So now you've got 4 guys in the band, and had Kenny had a single out yet, or where did Edgar come in? Where did you find Edgar?
Edgar used to sit in with us at that Holiday Inn, like almost every night. He literally drove to Nashville. He had a friend who was a car dealer, I think, and he was going to drive to Nashville and try to exploit a music career. And in the meantime, he was going to work for this car dealership, got a used car lot. I guess he was going to wash cars, drive them around, fix them up, whatever. And before he ever even, literally when he got to Nashville, he saw a Holiday Inn and pulled over and walked in the place. He still had his stuff in the car. Oh, you play? Oh, come on out and play with us. So it became a regular thing. I don't think he was there every night, but he was there almost every night. So he was unofficially a 4th member of the band back then.
4th member. That is so crazy because, as we jump ahead, 45 years, just earlier last week, you were playing with the band again, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And Edgar was emceeing the show,
Yeah.
right?
How about that? That's awesome. Yeah.
Almost 50 years later.
I know. Crazy.
Would it be safe to say that the hairstyles have changed and colors have changed as well?
The colors for sure. Yeah. And the styles. Yeah. Yes. We've all had, Edgar had this Billy Preston afro back then.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So. It looked like Artist Gilmore. Or like that.
There's a reference.
Steve, people think that the life of a traveling musician is all glamour, all parties, all filet mignon and shrimp and everything.
Well, they're right. It is.
Yeah.
No, it's not really.
It is. It is. Might be for the headliner.
You're right.
But talk a little bit about what an average day was like on the road, because people, again, they don't realize and I think you told me, I think you were the one that told me this, that we play for free, but they pay us for the other 22 hours a day that we have to kill time.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you that, but I should have, because that's definitely a good way to look at it. A typical day evolved over the time, over all those years. I'll start from the latest and work my way back, see if we run out of time.
Yeah.
For about the last 20 years, I guess, we were on a bus. And so the typical day was we would, at the end of a show, we'd get on the bus, the driver would drive to the next town, and we would sleep on the bus. We'd usually watch TV or sit around and shoot the breeze till time to go to bed, and we'd go to our little bunks on the bus and wake up at different times. Some guys may wake up at 7, 8 o'clock. Others would sleep till 10, 11, even noon. And when we would get up, we would be in usually a hotel parking lot, a Hampton Inn or something. And sometimes we could check into the hotel as soon as we kind of woke up on the bus. We'd go in, have breakfast at the hotel and check in, spend the day at the hotel, and then around 4 or 5 o'clock, we'd get back on the bus and go to the venue. Other times, we couldn't check in until later, or other times we could check in when we got up off the bus, but we'd have to check out of the hotel at like 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so every day from that standpoint was different. I would usually have to go, especially the last few years here, I would have to go over to the venue a little earlier than the other guys. And so there would always be a runner, what's called a runner from the venue. And they'd send the runner to pick me up at maybe at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I had to be there a little earlier because I would be dealing with a wardrobe person to make sure all our clothes were up to speed. And then Christmas shows, I would be dealing with choir directors, and we always had a little group of kids, and I kind of got that organized on the phone in advance before we got to the town. So I would usually have to get there a little earlier, but basically we hardly ever did sound checks. We had great sound guys. Keith and Frank were so good at it that we didn't really have to do a sound check like a lot of bands have to do. And then we were supposed to be in the dressing room an hour before the show started and we'd hang out with Kenny, and sometimes he'd get his voice warmed up and run a couple songs. Sometimes we'd just talk about what movie Kenny saw that day, or the golf course Keith and I played maybe that day, or what, we just have a little gab session for an hour.
But you threw a dinner in prior to this, right?
Yeah, there was always catering. We always had dinner. Yeah, I always ate dinner.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
So did you ever remember the good places on tour that you went from year to year versus, the catering? Because I know a lot of people used to talk about when you come to New England, because you'd get seafood where you wouldn't get that in the center of the country.
Yeah, we'd go to Portland, Maine. They'd always have lobster for us. There was remember that, John, you were always there at that place in, I think it was Beverly, Massachusetts, and the catering was so good some places had great catering, some pretty bad. You got what you got. You didn't know what you were going to get.
But it's interesting, when you're doing 100, 125 cities a year, that you guys can remember where the good stuff was. The fact that we hadn't been to Beverly in a good 10 or 15 years, and yet you remember that it wasn't a tent. It was a hard building, but it was in the round.
Right, yeah.
And, that was pretty cool there. I forget the name of the restaurant. I know it's still there. But anyway, it was a great place.
And we used to work a lot of like casinos in the South, like in Mississippi and Louisiana, Oklahoma, those kind of places, and they always had great food there. Some places like casinos, they just give us a free pass to the restaurants, or some places we'd eat in the employees' cafeteria. Some of those were not very good.
Yeah. That was the leftover food.
Right, kind of, yeah.
Not the food that they took off the plates, but
I hope not.
I hope not. I remember, like down at was it Mohegan or Foxwoods? They had that they had that employee cafeteria where you sat with all the guys that, and everybody's coming through in all their different uniforms, from the dealers to the people that brought the drinks to the people that sold the cigarettes, etc.
Right.
And you had to run. Remember, you had to run through that turnstile to
Right. Yeah.
get the hamburgers. And then Mohegan, it was different because they had the big slices of roast beef and everything that was a little bit.
I remember one time we worked in Vegas, and it was in a like an employee's cafeteria. I think it was at the Mirage, and in the hotel, or maybe the hotel next door that owned by the same people, Cirque du Soleil was working there. So the Cirque du Soleil people would come into with their bizarre costumes, and they all smoked like crazy. You think those people are so contortionists, and they're athletic, and they're doing all this crazy stuff, and they're smoking cigarettes like crazy. It was.
And then you're sitting next to the guy who's the contortionist guy who's eating with his feet. he's holding the orange juice jar with his foot, and he's drinking it. That must have. Did you ever bump into any other characters backstage that might have been doing another show in this? I guess Vegas would be the only place that you'd have multiple acts going on in the same building at the same time.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of that. I remember one night we were working in the very early days, we were working like a Harrah's Lounge in Reno or something. And we're right in the middle of the show, and all of a sudden from the side of the stage, do you remember Larry Storch, the actor?
Oh yeah.
F Troop.
Right.
He was the stand-up comedian. And all of a sudden he comes running onto the stage right in the middle of the show, and Kenny said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And he thought he was late. He wasn't supposed to go on until like another hour or something. And he panicked and thought, "Oh my gosh, I'm late." So he comes running onto the stage and, "Oh, sorry."
Well, Kenny's out there.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm told that Seinfeld opened for you guys at one time.
He did. He sure did.
Any stories with him?
Well, I'm sure you've heard from somebody. I know you've done enough of these interviews to know that he didn't show up one night. I can't remember what the story was. He missed his transportation, or he got the time wrong or something. And he missed the show and got in a little bit of trouble for it, but I'm not sure how that turned out. I think he worked he was going to do like 3 or 4 nights in a row with us.
Yeah. I forget who told me that story, that Kenny picked him up on the way and said, "Don't fire this guy," because I don't know, whatever. It was some kind of heavy traffic between the hotel and the venue.
That was it.
Or something like that. I forget who told that story. I asked you a question, and then I interrupted the question, but we were talking about all the different roles that you've played, with the choirs, et cetera, et cetera. When we talked with Dave Twiss earlier and Gerard Stewart, they just couldn't say they couldn't say enough nice stuff about you.
Well, I can't say enough nice stuff about those 2 particular choir directors too. Some of them I won't remember, but some of them worked year after year after year, and those 2 particularly are just super guys. They really worked hard. They had their people well prepared, and sometimes those choirs were really good, sometimes not so much. Again, you kind of didn't know what you were going to get till you got there sometimes. But those 2 particularly, I'm sure if I could think of some more, I'd think of some more that were excellent.
Yeah. They took the pressure off you because you knew coming up that, especially like a Mohegan, for example, where you do 2 nights, you only have to do 1 rehearsal with them. And you kind of knew that the job that they were going to do was not going to embarrass you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So moving along time-wise, you went from the jet planes to the buses and, et cetera, along those lines. I know what we're saying. Then you went back to the show. I interrupted you at dinner. So you're at dinner, then you're in the back, you're backstage, basically, sometimes waiting for the opening act, right? And there were times there when there were two opening acts, so you guys wouldn't go on until what, 9 or 9:30, depending upon where you were?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it was an 8 o'clock show. Yeah, we wouldn't go
Right.
on until 9 or 9:30.
Right. So,
But we would just kill time. I mean, we always had that hour with Kenny, but any time extraneous of that, we'd be, especially towards the end there, we'd be checking our email, looking at our phones. Sometimes there was a football game on. There was a TV back there. We'd watch the football game. Just time kills, time fills.
doing the show, and then moving on to the next city.
Yeah.
As you look back on it, anything you say that, geez, I wish I would have done differently, with Kenny or jumping off the bandwagon and moving on to another act, to get, was it 40? How many years? 40 what?
Yeah, 42, I think. I started in March of '76, and our last show was into 2017. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, John, I really don't know. I mean, I've thought several times, maybe I should have left like Edgar and some of the other guys did halfway through and maybe found another opportunity, maybe concentrated more on songwriting. I've always enjoyed songwriting and have had a little success with that. But then on the other hand, it was hard to leave because it was good, it was steady, it was fun most of the time. Kenny was a great boss. The guys in the band were all excellent players, and they were adults, and you didn't have to, baby them around, and so it was just too easy to leave. So I didn't leave. I just didn't leave. So.
It's interesting you say that because in one of the people that we've talked to, and after you've done so many of these, you forget who said what. But there were guys that left at various times, whether Lynn left and Warren left or whatever. And when you would seek their replacement, one of the characteristics, I guess, qualities that they needed was not just their skill on stage musically, but how well they worked with you guys during the other 22 hours of the day. Yeah. And I'm told that there were a couple people that were more talent, but they were.
Yeah, we didn't feel like they'd fit in as well. Yeah, that's true. I remember there was one, I can't remember who it was, but one of the reasons we didn't hire him was we thought he was so good that he wouldn't stay very long.
Oh.
You know what I mean? That he'd get some other opportunity and move on. And Kenny didn't like changes, and we didn't either. We liked it to be consistent, and the fewer changes, the better. And a lot of acts like Dolly, for instance, she'd like to change it up. She didn't like to have the same band over a long period of time. She may do a bluegrass tour, one tour may be real pop or something, so she liked to change it up. Kenny liked to be able to turn around and say, and pull a song out of the air that maybe we haven't done in a couple of years, and know that we would know the song and we could do it. So
right on stage, right during the show.
Right. Yeah. Didn't happen very often, but at least he wanted that option that he could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you said, I dabbled in songwriting and that type of thing, but you kind of dabbled more than that because you and Warren and a few other people put Toy Star together. Talk about Toy Shop.
The Toy Shop. Yeah.
Give us the history of that and how that evolved.
Well, Kenny and Kelly wrote this a book and decided that they could turn it into a musical. So Kenny came to Warren and I and said, let's try to write a song or two. And so we wrote this one song, I think. Can't remember what the first one was. And that turned into 2, 3 songs. And we kind of did it backwards in that the book, as it's called, and the song should all be written sort of at the same time. So they all fit into each other, but we didn't we didn't do it that way. We would write a song to go with something that with the dialogue, and before you know it, we had 8 or 10 or 11 songs. I can't remember how many songs we wrote, and we did it on the road one year. I remember the first one we did, the band wasn't on stage. We were kind of behind shins.
Oh, that's right, hidden the whole time.
Yeah. And
Yep.
it was all over. Warren and I were sitting next to each other and looked at each other like, well, we did it. We got the first one under our belt. And then we did it on the road for the rest of that year, maybe one other year, 96, 97 maybe. And then 98, we did it in New York at the Beacon Theater for a long time, really, from
3 weeks.
Thanksgiving until after New Year's, I believe. And then we did it, we kept doing it 3 or 4 more years after that, I think. And it's been done since then without Kenny. It was done with Billy Dean did it a year or two, and Alan Thicke did it. And then last winter, they did it in Fairhope, Alabama, with a guy named the lead character there, Kenny's character, was a Broadway actor from New York named Sean McDermott. He was really good. And I actually went down there and I was actually in it this year, this past year. I played Mr. Baxter, the old Scroogey evil banker guy. Something I've always kind of wanted to do. And I used to tell Kelly, one of these days, Kelly, I can be an old grouchy guy and I think I can play that part. And last summer he called, he said, all right, you want to do it? I said, yeah, I do want to do it.
So you did it for a week?
So I did it for, a little longer than a week. I think it was about 10 days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay. Let me throw some names out. To you, people that you may have worked with, and just talk about the first thing that comes to mind. And I don't even know what names I'm going to throw out because I'm thinking this on my feet. Linda Davis.
Linda Davis, in my mind, is the most underrated artist in country music. There's no way I could say anything the least bit negative about that girl. She is awesome. And she sings fantastic. She was, out on the road with us off and on, especially the last couple of years here, all the time that we were on the bus together. And she's just one of my favorite, not only my favorite singers, one of my favorite people in the whole world. She's awesome.
No ego issue with Linda.
No ego, no bitterness. And her daughter and my daughter were buddies in school. They played tennis together, went to school together.
Okay.
So
now, I'm glad, unless you're going to tell it on your own. Go ahead. No, I'll set it up. You told me that you're driving Gracie, your daughter, right?
Yes.
And Hillary, and you're in a van or something like that. And what's Hillary doing in the backseat?
Oh, there was 7 or 8 girls. And we took them to Jekyll Island from Nashville. We rented a big old van, my wife and I. We piled all these girls in the car. They were sophomores, juniors, high school, between, I don't know, sometime in high school. And we actually stopped at Kenny's farm and Kenny let us spend the night. They had a ball riding around on golf carts and messing around at the farm. And then we went down to Jekyll Island. And Hillary couldn't stop singing in the van.
Okay. So she's behind you singing away. What are you saying to her?
What am I saying to her? What do you mean?
Not singing to her. What did you told me that you say, Hillary, would you just quiet down?
Well, we stopped to get gas or something, and I asked Gracie, I said, can you move Hillary to the back of the van?
So we should tell our audience who Hillary is. What's the Hillary that we're referring to?
Yeah, you tell them.
Well, it's as Linda would say, I'm Granny Antebellum, and Linda is the mother of Hillary Scott, Linda Scott Davis, or Linda Davis Scott, whatever. Linda describes her as the chick singer in Lady Antebellum. And
I'm gonna tell you something, John. Even then, when she was in high school and even younger, she sang. I knew at some point that girl was going to be a very successful country music artist.
Yep.
or pop music artist for that matter. It wouldn't necessarily have to be country. She could sing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like her mom and her dad. Her dad's a good singer too.
That's right.
Man, he's awesome.
Lang, right? Yeah. Yeah, well, they during this whole COVID thing, they put together some songs from the back porch, I think they called it.
Yeah.
Where they were on the piano and
Christian record out that's excellent. So good. The Scott family, I don't know the name of the Scott family, I guess. Really
Yep.
good though.
something like that. So, you never know who you don't know when you're in the middle of it that it's going to be in a historic event later on, but certainly that was the case. So we said Linda, Dolly.
Dolly is so much fun to be around, and she couldn't be sweeter to everybody she comes in contact with. We worked with her on several tours, and you couldn't ask for a sweeter person. What you see is what you get. I'm sure everybody has said this about her before. She can say anything to anybody and get away with it, doesn't matter how edgy it is, because she just puts that little smile on you, and doesn't matter what she says. She's a sweetheart, and what talent, and what a success.
And backstage, same as what you see on stage.
Absolutely.
Yep. Oak Ridge Boys.
Oh man, they're the best. Those guys are we had so much fun with them out there, and they're positive, they're up, they're happy all the time, and it's like watching them is like watching a three-ring circus. You can't take your eyes off of this guy, and then you can't take your eyes off this guy. And Joe's up there bouncing around all over the place, and William Lee's got that stoic thing with that big beard, and Richard's singing way down low, and we got to know their band really well. I had a good time with those guys, and really fun working.
Garth Brooks.
We played basketball a lot with Garth Brooks, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy either. I mean, we'd get to a town, and we'd go play. Not all of us, but Gene and Keith would play. T. Ray, our merch guy, would play, and Garth and some of his guys. And we'd just kind of divide up teams and go find a gym somewhere. Somebody would set that up, and we'd go play basketball every day.
He was nobody then, right?
Pardon?
He was the opening act, the first one on the bill, not even the second.
He was definitely on his way up, but he was down low and on his way up.
Yeah.
But I think he's the same guy now as he was then. One of our guys, crew guys, wound up going to work for him after he left us, and has been with him long, long time now. Still goes out and works with Garth.
Laney?
Pardon?
Laney Landers?
Yep, exactly.
Yep, Laney Landers. Sawyer Brown.
Fun guys, all of them super guys. I run into the bass player at a grocery store in Nashville every once in a while. Hobie, the keyboard player, I see him occasionally, and happy-go-lucky. All those guys, again, happy-go-lucky, fun guys, and fun to be around every day. Yeah.
Gatlin Brothers.
I don't know where to start with those guys. Those guys are a handful, I'm telling you, especially early on in those early years when they were out with us in the early 80s. They were a handful. Fun to be around, though, no question about that. And we stayed in touch. Of course, we just did that thing. I probably see Rudy more than the other two, but I've run into both. But Steve and Larry, I've run into several times. I run into Larry not too long ago in Branson. I went to see Billy Dean. You're probably going to mention him next. And me and another guy went to. Larry was emceeing this regular thing he did at the Opry House. A couple of years ago, we went to see him. So, yeah, we sort of stayed in touch.
You read my mind. Billy Dean.
Billy Dean he's my buddy. He's just super guy. We wrote a song together called "I'm Already a Dead Man."
Oh, I'm already dead.
Yeah, it's like a cowboy western song.
Already.
And of course, he was in the toy shop there for a year or two, maybe 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah, out in
And
Brand.
I would go kind of coach up the singers. The year Billy did it in Branson, I went out there and spent some time. And so, yeah, great guy, super guy.
Two funny guys, Mario and Danielle.
Haven't seen them in a long time. I thought about them yesterday. I was eating at an Argentinian restaurant out here in California, and I thought about those guys yesterday.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're up to.
They were doing.
They couldn't be more. Pardon?
They were doing productions on cruise ships. Of course, the cruise ship industry has.
And they sponsored a tour for us. They put the whole thing together when we went to South America several years ago, and they put that whole thing together for us.
Okay.
So
yeah,
they were on the bus some. They were fun to have around too.
Yep.
They were like the Hispanic Smothers Brothers.
That's yes. The Argentinian Smothers. Speaking of funny guys on the bus, John Panette.
That was a short-lived thing, but he did ride on the bus with us. And at the time, we had three girl, lady, women background singers. And, John was a big man. He was
You're talking about Michelle, Tammy, and Beverly.
Tammy and Beverly, yeah. And so that the night or two he rode on the bus with us, the bus was very crowded. It was kind of a short run, like 3-4 hours, so we didn't go to bed. And there was some a little bit of drinking going on that night, and John was in the middle of that. That was a night I'll remember that night for a long time. I mean, nothing too crazy happened, but
if I recall, there were that was the night from Massachusetts out to Buffalo, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think it was someplace up in New England.
Yeah. John Panette. I forgot about him. He was absolutely hilarious.
He's with us anymore. I think he.
He passed. He passed young at a young age. But see, he was made fun of himself during that time. When he was a big guy. Then he had the stomach stapling.
Oh, really?
Surgery, and then was like half the person he was. And I remember one year he was performing down at Foxwoods, and Foxwoods or Mohegan, one of the two. And I had called him because he didn't know who I was from Adam. I told him that we had worked together, blah, 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 blah. And he said, well, I got no tickets left for tonight, but come tomorrow night. And, we just couldn't do it. But, at that level, you can register in the hotel under your own name, and you just call up and ask for John Panette's room. Hello, like that type of thing. So I know there's so many other stories that we should get into that, if we start one, we'll never have time to get on to the other. But what were the qualities that you saw in Kenny that allowed him to have a 40-year, a 50, 60-year career that the other people that you would bump into as opening acts and other acts that you'd see throughout your career, weren't of the same caliber?
Well, for openers, he was a workaholic. I mean, he wanted to work all the time. He wanted to work as much as they could book him. He'd say, "Okay, we'll do it. Let's do it." And he was a great entertainer. Besides just being a good singer, he came from that jazz singer nightclub school. He was a very underrated musician in that he was at one time was an excellent jazz bass player. Most people don't know that. And he was very, very attuned to harmonies, singing harmonies because of his background there. And he was nice to everybody he confronted. Anybody that it didn't matter whether you were just a blue collar schmuck or some rich elite person. He was the same to everybody, and he always had time for everybody. He was very approachable, and he was a hard guy not to like. You couldn't help but like the guy. So, and there was, when you look at that, I'm seeing that picture of him over there on your right side. He's just got that. He's got that unique look, you know, and that just, it's magnetic. He just kind of drew people to him, and just a sweet man, just a great guy.
Mm. So your thoughts when back in March when you heard? I mean, well, let me go back a few months or a couple of years prior to that. When we did those interviews the last weekend up in where were we? We were in New Haven there, Oakdale, where we did the interviews in the dressing room.
All right. Oh yeah. Okay.
And then the next couple nights we were up in Glens Falls, New York, on a frigid, cold Sunday night. Did you have the feeling that was it at all?
I had the feeling that could be it. You know, Kenny was supposed to have that procedure done in January, and he was fully intending to go back to work, and was told that after this procedure was over, he was going to be feeling a lot better. And, so we assumed that we were going back to work probably around March or maybe as late as April.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. I mean, the procedure, I guess, didn't do what he thought or what they thought it was going to do. And he just kind of never got strong enough to go back out on the road. So, but yes, there was in the back of my mind that night as we were finishing up, this could be it. It's a good possibility that this is the last one. So
yeah. And then you had that long 21-hour ride back to Nashville.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was our last one.
It was the last one. But you know what? At the end of one thing, there's always something else, and there's some exciting stuff on the horizon, which actually, if it wasn't for this COVID stuff, we'd be in the middle of it right now. Talk about the Through the Years presentation, the show.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are in these, I'm going to call them tribute bands, and it never dawned on me that we would be in one, and not that this is one. This is totally different in that it's Kenny's band playing Kenny's music, just with a different singer. And this singer, it's Don Gatlin. He doesn't try to look like Kenny or sound like Kenny, but he sounds great. And we only got to work really one live show before this crazy pandemic hit. Had some other dates booked that wound up getting canceled, but we just did one last week, as you know. It's a fair in Michigan that Edgar put together, and we filmed it at a rehearsal studio in Nashville. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's really going to be fun. It's fun seeing the guys again. Can't tell you how much fun that is. And Don there is the biggest Kenny Rogers fan I know. He knows every song. He knows every lyric to every
all
song.
the nuances too. Even the way Kenny would hold the microphone cord.
Yeah.
In his hand.
I think he kind of throws a little bit of that in just, for kind of the fun of it, to see kind of who notices the little.
Because Kenny, did you ever notice Kenny would always have that microphone cord over his right shoulder?
Yeah, you always had to have. You have to have something to do with your hands. You know, guitar players used to play guitar, and Kenny in the first edition played bass, and so you got to have something to do with your hands, and that's what he found to do, I guess.
And speaking of the first edition, when you guys were in Nashville for the Hall of Fame induction, I think it was 2013 or so. Well, actually, you all played with the first edition on that 50th anniversary tour.
Yeah.
That must have been wild, exchanging stories with Terry Williams and all those guys backstage.
I've stayed and some of our guys too, but I've stayed in touch with those guys. Terry Williams is a buddy of mine. Gene Sinibaldi, Gene Lorenzo, as he was called at the first edition. I don't know Mike Settle real well. Been around Mary Arnold a couple of times. We've got a mutual friend, and so it's not like they're we just kind of met these guys. We go
Yep.
way back with them. We know them, and they live in Nashville. So I don't think they did at the time in the first edition days. They didn't. I think they lived in Los Angeles. But
Now, Mary Arnold, is that Miller?
yeah,
Yeah,
Roger Miller's
Roger Miller's
Yeah.
wife,
right.
etc. So we could go on all night, Stephen, with these old stars here. But you know, now we're looking ahead. When I was watching that video, and by the way, it's on YouTube. Is it under Kenny Rogers Band?
I found it on YouTube. It wasn't easy to find. I mean, I put in the search thing, and I searched Oceana County Fair presents the Kenny Rogers Band, and I had to pretty much type out the whole thing to find it. I watched it on my computer, and then I said, well, and Chuck sent me a text and said it's on YouTube also. So I said, I'm gonna put it on YouTube as I watch it on my TV, and it's way better.
Oh, on the big screen.
Oh, it's way better on the big screen than it is on a computer. Way better. So
I'll have to do that. But when you look at the band, everybody is, because you were ripped away from what you loved. In other words, nobody knew it was the last show. In other words, we didn't say, okay, this is going to be the last show. So nobody got a chance to, high five after the thing was over. So the fact that the band is all getting back together again, I looked at the excitement in their eyes, and I saw older men become young again.
Yeah.
And especially you. I mean, you're over on the right. You weren't normally on the right, were you?
Well, they've moved me around several times. But yeah, the last little bit, I was sort of in the middle. For a long time, I was on the other side. For years and years, I was stage right, but on the left if you're looking at the stage.
Yeah.
Now I'm on the other side.
Well, at least you're on the right side of the curtain.
That's right. Yeah.
At least you're not behind Frank.
So far.
You're not behind Frank over on the corner over there. But there's new life. What was it like playing that show the other night? I'm looking and I said to my wife, look at Glassmeyer. He looks like a teenager here.
Well, it's funny. I noticed this, that first live show we did, a little bit of a different mindset. When we were out there with Kenny all those years, I always looked at our job was to make Kenny comfortable and make Kenny happy and let Kenny worry about the audience. And now I feel like that I and all of us individually are more part of the act. We're the act as opposed to, we didn't have to make Kenny happy and let Kenny worry about the audience. Now we kind of have to worry about the audience a little bit too, even though Don is obviously the focal point. He's singing all the songs, but it's a little bit of a different mindset, and it makes it fun. It makes it, I won't say more fun than it was working with Kenny. It's just different, and it's
different.
So I'm going to look forward to it.
A different thing, because if based upon the enthusiasm, I'm waiting for Chuck to get up on a banderizer again and do the jump heard around the world like he did at Glastonbury. I'm waiting for Chuck to do that. Talk about that, and then we'll wrap this baby up. But talk about Chuck at Talk about being at Glastonbury.
Oh man, that was so much fun. That was so cool. That's where when you're working at a casino in Jackson, Mississippi or somewhere, you're working at a casino in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's great. But
you can't see the audience.
When you're doing Glastonbury or doing the one out here in California, Stagecoach, Coachella.
Oh, Coachella.
That we did, or the one in close to Nashville.
Bonnaroo,
yeah. When you're doing those kind of things, you kind of pretend you're a rock star for an hour and 20 minutes,
Well, we should say Glastonbury is not Glastonbury, Connecticut that we're talking about.
No, it's in England. And
tell me
it was during the day, it was in the afternoon, but I mean, people as far as you can see. I mean, just people. And that was a blast.
Who was on the show the night before?
Maybe the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, that's what Chuck says.
Yeah, I think
the Rolling Stones.
And there was this band that went on after us that most country people aren't going to know, called Vampire Weekend. Just happens to be, I'm not really attuned to some of these new pop bands, but for whatever reason, I love that one. So that was a blast to see them go on right after us that day.
Right. After you warmed up, the audience was there, and you know what they say, 130,000 people. Is that what the term was used? I don't know.
I think so.
Maybe
Yeah.
30,000.
No, I think
Every
it
year
was
the crowd gets bigger.
Yeah.
Every year the crowd gets bigger. So, final thoughts about your life with Kenny.
Well, you know, it was pretty much my whole adult life. I mean, when I started, I was not quite 26 years old. I was just really out of college, and I'd played music all the way through high school and college. So I had, I've got lots of stories from those years too. But pretty much my adult life was spent on the road with Kenny Rogers from age 25 till age 65, 66, something like that. And, who could ask for better than that? I mean, back in the day, you used to go, fill out a credit report or something. What do you do for a living? I'm a musician. Ooh, that's high risk. That's not very stable. But how stable can you get? 42 years with one job, with one artist?
Yep.
Who can say that? I know I've got a buddy out here that's been with Frankie Valli, still with Frankie Valli for 35, 36 years.
Robbie?
And I had a real good friend that I used to play in a band with. It was with Charlie Daniels for years and years not until Charlie passed away, but until this person passed away. So it does happen. I know some people with Neil Diamond that were there for years and years. It does happen, but it doesn't happen that often, I'll tell you that. So
that was the guy with Frankie Valli. You're talking Robbie Robinson?
Yes, Robbie Robinson.
Yeah. And I guess Lynn used to work with him
at
one time when Lynn was doing Frankie's gig.
Yeah, he did. Sure did.
Yeah. Wow. So Steve, we want to thank you so much for spending this time. And when we talked last night, you said to me, quote unquote, I don't know if I'm going to have anything to say that the other guys have already said.
Yeah.
How incorrect were you there?
I don't know. I haven't seen all of them yet. I think I duplicated a couple of stories that I've heard. I saw Bobby's and I saw Edgar's. I haven't seen Chuck's yet. Have you done Chuck yet?
Oh, yeah. Chuck's up there.
I haven't seen Chuck's or Randy's yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I probably duplicated them. Maybe I.
Watch them. That's a good idea. I'm going to watch these up on the big screen. Because now with the smart TVs, you can put them up on the 50-inch screen, and they're larger than life. So anyway,
well, how many more of these are you going to do, John?
Oh man, you know what?
Okay.
So
this could be a whole career. This could go on for years.
Well, here's what's happened. I got a phone call last Friday night from Roy Rogers, Kenny's brother, and I said, Roy, if you guys are comfortable and you want to talk, because Roy's the only brother that I knew. Well, I knew Leland, but Leland's already passed. Right. And I said, I'll send you up some of these. He goes, you don't have to send me anything. I saw it. I saw those videos. And, when do you want to be on? When do you want to have me on? So, we're trying to figure out the time. So we recorded today with Roy.
Oh, good.
And then Roy called me at 6 o'clock tonight and said, I talked to my brother Randy and my sister Sandy, who are twins.
Right.
And they want to come on.
Yeah. I was going to suggest before you left there that you should do Randy and Sandy too, for that matter.
Yeah.
They're a hoot. They're both.
And they're twins, and they want to go on together.
Oh, okay.
They want to go on together, so
it would be tough because Randy lives in Florida and Sandy lives in Texas or Georgia.
I think she's in Athens, Georgia.
Oh, she is? Okay.
Near the ranch, near the golf course, whatever, the big Kenny house there. So we're going to work that out next week. But one person said this one here. Now people are saying, well, you got to talk to Roy Bickle and all these other names of guys that were stage directors. and that type of thing. So I planned on doing just the band, and then Keith and Frank. And then
it took on a life of its own.
And then Gene Roy is going to come on, but Gene Roy said, "I'll go last. I'll go last, so I can set the story straight on anything that may be said about me."
That's perfect.
And then Gerald came on, and
there you go.
But we had some technical issues with that, so we got to redo that one. And there's some other names here of people. We got to do Kelly over again. We did Kelly back 3 years ago, but we got to do Kelly again. And we even did Mike Denny, one of the bus drivers. So we got to find Doug.
I saw that one.
Yeah, we got to find Doug. So anyway, here we are. We're rambling. We're still on the air, but we're rambling. But folks, all I can tell you is this: it was a pleasure talking with Steve Glassmeyer, who said he wouldn't have anything to talk about, and now, 56 minutes later.
Really?
Yes. We're still talking. And, we could go on, Steve, once you start throwing names out, you could go on for another hour just talking about some of the crazy stories of what took place about, getting lost in snowstorms on the bus and having to cancel shows. And, but when you analyze it, there weren't that many shows that were missed during the 35 years that I got to hang around with you guys.
Nope.
Which is absolutely amazing when you consider the traveling that y'all did.
Half of life is showing up, John. Just show up.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So with that being said, if we want this to show up on YouTube, we got to get off of Zoom and get onto YouTube. Our guest has been Steve Glassmeyer, who is the man that wore about 12 different hats for Kenny during 42, 43 years. We want to thank him. And folks, if you enjoyed this, oh, by the way, folks, if there's anybody that you think we should talk to, just send a comment in down the bottom of this YouTube thing, and we'll see if we can track them down. The button down there, hit subscribe, hit the bell. You'll get all these delivered to your mailbox directly to you before anybody sees them. So with that being said, Steve, let's go out in what?
A blaze of glory.
All good things must end.
All good things must end.
See you guys.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.